everybody, and welcome. Good afternoon. It's just turned 12 o'clock, and this is the Women in Leadership Special Interest Group meeting for June. I am Jane Maloney, IHSCM Operations Manager. And we are joined today by Amanda Reynolds, who is founder and director of Blend Associates, and also Rebecca Campbell, who is senior auditor at Lovewell Blake. They are here to deliver our first in a three-part series of sisters doing it for themselves. And today we hope to share some ideas and empower female leadership to be their authentic, true selves. And without further ado, I'd like to invite you all to stay on mute for the time being. And I'll hand over to Amanda and Rebecca, and there will be opportunities for you to unmute, ask questions, and go into some breakout rooms for a discussion as well. Enjoy the session, everyone.
Thank you, Jade. I hope if Claire in my team puts a thumb up, she'll be able to tell me she can hear me, because it's important she hears me, because she's going to run the slide deck. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Claire, can you share us slide 3, please? Thank you. That talks for itself. I founded Blend Associates coming up for 10 years ago, and just over 3 years ago we extended the company from 3 of us to 35 coaches plus a core admin team in response to the pandemic, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I still coach myself 1 day a week, and I've got a special interest in coaching women leaders to thrive. So that's why I'm delighted to be here. But I'm 57 next birthday, so I'm of a generation of women who have grown their leadership in different times, and I'm delighted to have Rebecca here with us, who's a Gen Z leader. And Claire, if you can show us Becca's mugshot. Rebecca's a professional accountant and works as a senior auditor in an accountancy firm that supports lots of small businesses, including my own, and GP practices. And she has a number on top of her day job of what we might call side hustles. So if being the founder and the managing director of Blend is my full-time hustle, Becca has some side hustles, and we thought you might be really interested in hearing 2 different perspectives of female leaders across the generations. And by 2025, 1 in 4 employees in every organisation will be Gen Z. So they are really important individuals to listen to. So welcome, Claire, if we can just start whacking through the slides because we're up against time. I just chose the Annie Lennox, Aretha Franklin song, Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, as the backdrop to our series of friends and colleagues at the Institute of Health and Social Care Management, because it really sums up to me the shift we need to get to. And I want to talk a little bit about that. She's a female, very clearly a female leader and a rule breaker. It's particularly important for me because when I was 15, I went along to the lower common room at the University of East Anglia, and I saw Annie Lennox on her Breaking Glass tour. And she bounced onto the stage with bright orange crew cropped hair and a bright orange satin bra and crop pants and nothing else on. And I took a deep breath and thought, wow, that's the sort of woman that's really out there and who I'm going to seek to emulate. I haven't led in satin bras in public, but I think what she said to me as a 15-year-old was powerful, strong leadership. And so I want you to hold on to that because that's probably behind my story. But I want to share some stats. We're talking about health and social care, and 88% of nurses and health visitors are women, 42% of ambulance staff, 77% of scientists, 62% of managers, 64% of medical school entrants, and 43% of accountants are now women across health and social care. And I checked that accountancy data with NHS England last week because I coach a deputy director of finance who's in the talent pool for a director role. So that is accurate. Yet most of the senior roles across professions are still predominated by men and white men. And so why? Are we holding ourselves back or are we being held back? And I think it's a bit of both. We know women are great inventors and entrepreneurs, and we know when women make money, they carry many more people with them. They tend to share that wealth as they grow the company. But Houston, we've got a problem when we try and do this in a world that's built for and by men. When I was putting this picture up, I was thinking about a number of women. Mary Anderson invented the windscreen wipers. Mary Van Britten invented home alarms. Shirley Ann Jackson invented caller ID. So who you know is calling you is down to her. We know about some of the NASA women who got the men back down. They did the complex maths to get the men back down. Mary Jackson, Katherine Johnson. And in COVID vaccines, think Professor Sarah Gilbert, Kathleen Carrico, and Dolly Parton. So Sarah Gilbert, the Oxford group, AstraZeneca. Kathleen Carrico, ignored for years. Her research was downgraded behind the mRNA way that the vaccine bypasses the immune system. So both Moderna and Pfizer can thank her. And Dolly Parton gave $1 million to Moderna right at the beginning of the vaccine surge. And she's an amazing entrepreneur too. So what connects them? Well, they're all women. They're diverse women. The NASA women, the windscreen wiper women, and the fire alarm women are all women of color. But we don't know about most of them. But most of them have invented things that keep us safe. Why are they obscure? Why are these women obscure? So the good news is the data taken from the Prowess Women in Business Report 2023. We're getting good at inventing things and starting companies. 1/5 of all new companies incorporated in 2022 were female-led. The numbers are going in the right direction. 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs is female. But that means we're missing 1 million new businesses that women could be starting, or if not a full business, an amazing side hustle. So we're going in the right direction, but we're still only 1/5 of new companies. And if you look at that NHS data and we think about how many women there are in the UK, that's a really small number. So why do women start businesses? I had a little think. Some of this is data-based and some of this is my own reflections. The data says it's flexibility. Women leave the workplace if they can't manage the other things in their life, if their employer won't support that. So it's childcare, often it's other caring needs. That chance to work from home, that chance to work more flexibly so you can spin a number of plates as you're working, the chance to problem solve, the chance to innovate, to create a better culture. But we know from the stats that we often don't start businesses because we fear failure more than men. Now, there's a good spin side to that. That makes us really good risk assessors. So if we're in the boardroom with the guys, we'll be the ones getting them to think twice about this new idea and whether it'll land or not. The downside is it can sometimes hold us back from starting initiatives, from speaking up. We know when we do want to start things, we get less support in business. The structures tend to be male orientated, and that doesn't help us. and we get less external capital. So if we've got a great idea, but to take it to market, we need a money injection, we're less likely to get it. Okay. And compared to best practice peer companies, the UK, we're not as good as entrepreneurship as other countries. But once we get started, oh my goodness, we are more ambitious. Next slide, Claire, please. We're more likely to have new and innovative product offerings. So we understand the market better than the guys and what people need. And then we outperform male counterparts when we set up and run businesses. But as I said, the guys get the money. That's an old stat. I couldn't find a more recent stat. Maybe the accountants in the room could do that for me. But we are more likely to see social, ethical and environment factors when we run our businesses as well. So we are good business leaders. What held me back? Well, and what kept me in senior public sector roles as well. What held me back? Presentism. When you're trying to raise a family and you've got to be there for an 8 a.m. meeting, suited, booted, and with your tights on. Oh, I don't remember the last time I wore a suit. I did put a jacket on today, but you know, don't have to worry about waist down. Networking and meeting after work, that's where the guys make their progress. Who's bathing the baby? I used to think when I was an executive with a small family. Cost of living, who's paying the mortgage? Trying to do everything, my own fear of failure. And then I was so busy in a leadership role in the public sector that I wasn't very good at building the support networks I needed to develop ideas for the next stage. Culture of boardroom, you know, every meeting should be 45 minutes longer or less because we women need to pee. When you're pregnant, when you're returning to work, you need to pee more than the guys. When you're as old as me, going through the menopause, you need to pee. And meetings aren't very well structured for those bodily functions. Other limits on me, my dad, bless him, he passed away 4 years ago. But when I passed my senior civil service exams, I told my dad I was so proud. I passed senior civil service exams. I've got a senior post in the Department of Health. I'm so proud of myself. And he said, don't forget how to make the tea though, will you? And I said, what? And he said, well, you know, you've always got to make sure you're useful. And that's held me back. I love my dad dearly, but those attitudes amongst men that women should be useful first and leaders second holds us all back. My dad was intensely proud of me, but he always thought I should still make the tea. I've made a point of being rubbish at making tea, and that's probably the most useful bit of advice I could give any of you. Be really bad at making the tea. Because it's the feel of the place, it's the culture of the place often, and the expectations. I'm not going to read that quote, but this is a fabulous book that one of our coaches recommended us. It's all the things that make us think like we can't be the leader, we can't be the entrepreneur, we can't have the idea, and it's all the assumptions in the system. I just want to, before I interview Becca, just want to tell you a little bit about Blend's journey. So at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was afraid, weren't they? And we thought we needed to help. We could have taken 3 months off, like many OD companies did, but we didn't. We ran towards the challenge. We ran towards supporting NHS leaders and teams because there was a clear need. If they valued coaches before the pandemic, boy, would they need coaches through. We had many of the building blocks in place. I was already working into New York City, so to be competitive, I was already offering a Zoom solution, but we moved into MS Teams really quickly because that's what the public sector needed us to do. I had the contracts for an associate model because I had 3 associates at the time, so we just scaled it up. We were watching New York and Milan because I have clients in New York, and a friend's daughter was working for AC Milan in as an administration manager, so I could see what was happening there, and I thought, this is coming. We had established networks across the NHS where we knew you were under an emergency footing before Matt Hancock stood up in Parliament and told the country. And we were well respected as coaches across the NHS. So we just ran towards trying to make processes that are agile, simple, fast, resilient, price sensitive. That's really funny. I remember having a conversation about we are never going to be on the front page of a newspaper for ripping the NHS off after this pandemic. So we made our prices so sensitive that we lost a bit of money on the first contract. But hey, I'm not on the front page of the newspapers with the PPE scandals and all of that other stuff. So I'm quite proud of that price sensitive. And maybe we were a bit brave. And what we do is still really valuable because we've not landed in a stable spot. Claire, can you just quickly show? We're really passionate about our values driving what we do. However difficult it is, we want to be the difference. We want to be optimistic, we enable, and we seek to be kind. And we've got lots of examples of where we do that in practice. Our clients, quite far and wide and deep across the NHS, because when you do a good job for the NHS, they tell their friends, and we've got a number of competitive frameworks as a result. So our clients are about 80% NHS with local government, third sector, education as well. That's enough about me though. Becca, let's find out about you. That's my hustle. And I'd be delighted to talk to people. If you've got any questions, put them in the chat. We'll try and answer them when we come back together. Rebecca, you're Gen Z and you're very much a young founder. So we want to ask you some questions. So Claire, do you want to pop the slide deck down, and I'll interview Becca now, if that's okay for everybody. So Becca, thanks for coming along.
Okay.
Claire, if you want to take the screen down completely so we can see Becca. Thank you. Hi, Becca. Very nice room you've got there.
Thank you. It's my own. Yeah, Microsoft Teams asked if they could use my room to use it as backgrounds.
Tell me briefly what your day job is, what you do Monday to Friday, sometimes in the office, sometimes working from home.
Yeah, so it's quite different each day, but the term accountant you'll probably understand more than auditor. Well, you probably don't, because you probably have all these accountants, but everyone knows an accountant as someone that kind of counts and things like that. An auditor is like the accountants for the accountants. We basically say to the accountant, well done, you've done your job, you've got these accounts here. We don't believe anything you've done. We're going to test every single thing, and we're going to make your life absolutely hell for about 2 weeks of the year. And then we'll come back next year, and because we won't believe you in the next year accounts. So we do that. So we have to know everything all about accounting. We have to be chartered accountants as well, to be able to do that, really. And then we sort of go up the ranks from assistant to senior, obviously, which means I lead teams now as well. That's
so
basically
you mark
it.
the homework. You're a qualified accountant who marks other accountants' homework. Thank you.
Yeah, makes
but
them
that's
have
what you
nightmares.
do in the day.
Yes.
What we're really, and I'm sure you're a great accountant and you're way through your professional training, is that right? And there will be lots of accountants in the NHS who go, yeah, I know that. And there'll be lots of managers who go, oh yeah, Becca's one of those people that comes and sees me and see how we're doing on the budget or the savings plan or the development we're working on. But actually you're also a founder. So tell us what you've started and where the idea came from.
So I started a network for young women in business looking to grow their skill set through networking and learning from others. I sort of had a look around. A lot of our world and industry is networking. I'm not sure how big that is in sort of like all of your guys' industries, but a lot of it is networking, and we have to do quite a lot. Um, I went to networking events and they were just horrible. They just made me feel uncomfortable. I felt like I had to talk to people I didn't want to talk to. You were kind of forced to go. No one wanted to be there, so everyone was just grumpy. And there's, only sort of one, only so much you can do with that. And it's not actually going to get you far. I mean, people think it's all about making connections to get you money in the long term. It's not all about that. It's about, meeting people. So I sort of realised there was a women's network in the area, but that was built up and it was full of established women like Amanda that I can learn so much from, but they're not on my same level. I need to see people around my level to know, I can talk to them and say, oh, I've had a really bad day, I did this, and I go, oh, I did that last week and stuff like that. Whereas I can chat to Amanda and be like, how did you do this? And she can tell me how to do it. But it's good to have both. So I wanted to create that. There's no age bracket or anything on it. It's just about women that want to take their career further. So it's aimed more at ability and sort of their job title rather than age. So we get people from all walks of life, all ages, come together at the network to sort of learn. We always have a guest speaker, and Amanda has been the guest speaker. And we learn from them, and then we network with them, and we learn about networking and how to network. And it has just sort of filled that hole, really, that I felt like I needed. And it does sound selfish, but I did completely found it how I would want to see it. So every speaker I talk to, I go, do I actually want to listen to this person? If it's a yes, I'll selfishly say, yeah, banging, we're going. But if it's a no, again, selfishly, it's not going to happen, because this is all basically built up on me hoping that I'm representative of the community, and we sort of go from there, really. And we've been going for like 2 years.
I think there's a couple of things that really step out for me there, that you saw a gap.
Yeah,
Networks tend to be populated by women like me, further on, established in their career. But what can younger women get? How can they network? And maybe you'll talk a bit more about your other work. It's not just women, it's younger men as well now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's something about a place solving a problem in a way that meets your needs as well as those of your sort of peer group and your generation. I suppose I also noticed, Becca, and I think there is a theme here for women as leaders, that we look at the world and we think, doesn't look very much like me. Where do I fit? How do I work in a way that fits what might be my culture or my way of doing this? And I really heard that with you. And there's something about, whilst women of my generation can tell our story and should, you were born in different times with different challenges, and there's something about your generation leading as well, and not, just waiting for us to tell you what the answers are, and us learning from you as well. Because the other thing that really stands out for me, Becca, you are just an ace with the social media. You are an absolute ace. And if anyone wants to know how to do social media, follow Becca on Instagram and LinkedIn. And
no pressure.
Just that whole using social media to reinforce the story and reinforce the connections and making the connections. So I think that's really, I've really noticed that. I'm like, oh, Becca's really good at this. I get round to my LinkedIn when I stop for coffee. Oh, I must like that. I'm speaking at that event, and Becca, you're just the queen of that. And I know that's absolutely a generational thing. In my house last night, I needed a QR code to get my supermarket loyalty card on my phone, and I was like, I need a young adult. I can't do QR codes. I just can't do QR codes. I something about them. So that's where my daughter helped. So what support did you get to take your idea into action, Becca? Because I'm sure people would want to know how you get from idea to landing it.
Yeah, so I think the thing to remember is that when we have an idea, it's like taking it to Dragon's Den. And if you turn up to Dragon's Den with an idea, but say to them, oh, I've actually got no sales currently and it's not actually started, they're probably going to run. They always go to Dragon's Den and they're like, I've already made £1 million turnover. I can do this, I can do that. I'm saying I'm brand new to networking and I'm setting up a network. I don't have much experience, but I just know what I want, basically. So the support is a bit like, whoa. So I found someone that had, and basically talked about my passions and things like that. And, you know, she acts as a bit of a mentor for me as well. And I basically just talked about it with her and said, you know, how would you do it? And basically just gave it a go. Honestly, I asked her for 5 names. So she's a partner at Burkitt's, which is a law firm. And I asked her for 5 names in her department of young women. And I basically just met these 5 young women. And we just kind of talked about it. And we were all sort of like, oh, my God, yeah, we completely agree. And it's after then that you've got that one person support. Then now I've got 6. And then you start the ball rolling. And then suddenly you've got more people. And, you know, then you've got my bosses coming up to you going, I heard you doing this. And I'm like, you know, I didn't want to tell you before I made it work. But yes, now I am doing that. And then it snowballs and snowballs until you've got like this big pool of, you know, support. And it is really hard at the start. It is. And, you know, it's all about, you know, having to even saying it to my family and they're like, I would just not. I would just go to the women ones and just, you know, just go and just enjoy yourself and not have to worry about it. But yeah, I'm a bit of a person that says no, I'm going to do it myself and have a go.
So there's a couple of interesting things there, Becca, isn't there? That actually you had an idea and then you got 5 other women in the room and you built that sort of testing of your idea and got their enthusiasm on board to launch it. I know when we expanded Blend at the beginning of the pandemic, we had lots of conversations with other coaches who had been working in NHS boardrooms to work out what should we do. Oh, let's gather us together as a group, as a network of coaches, of faculty. And then there's a momentum, isn't there? Like you said, then you, before you know it, you're 5 to 12 to 40 to, you know, that sort of momentum builds. But what I also said to you is a bit like my experience when I joined the civil service. Our families wanting the best for us can actually put us down and hold us back because their motivation is to make sure we're safe, secure, we're doing okay. But sometimes that can be, oh, don't do that, Becca. Keep going to the established network where all the old women are. And there's often when we take advice or counsel, be careful and maybe be tough-minded enough to say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
You know, because not everyone's willing to give you advice, but not everybody gives you helpful advice, do they?
No, it is largely, and it's horrible to say, the older generation that sort of sees us as like the tea makers. And, you know, you don't want to be there and be like, oh, but it's mainly like people like your grandparents are there like, whoa, but how can you do that while you've got so much teas to be making? Like, and then, and again, I am really bad at making cups of tea. I don't drink tea, so I'm really bad at it.
Keep being bad at the tea, Becca.
I do.
There's a key lesson learned there, which I wish I'd have learnt it earlier in my career. Don't step forward to make the tea, because they'll always see you as the tea girl.
Well, not if you don't make it very well. Then absolutely. You say, do you want a drink? And they say, yo, you're all right.
So, Becca, that's interesting though, isn't it? Because there is a genuine concern about us not taking on too much, you know, taking care of our well-being. We talk to coaching clients a lot about their resilience and their well-being. So actually, you know, one job wasn't enough for you. You're doing this in addition to. So what have you learned? I can see that you've learned that you love, and it's energy giving, and it's meeting lots of your needs and other young women's needs on the network. So what have you learned? The good, the bad, the ugly from this process? The bad, the
ugly. So yeah, the good thing is that it is so easy to bring people together and to work together. You have so much more in common than you think you do with everyone else in the room. and it is just amazing to see. I'm so fortunate to be able to see it, and to be able to work with that is just amazing. The slightly tougher things is not everyone's going to be your supporter. If you're making it in life, there's always going to be someone that's kind of drag you down type thing. There's, you know, the bosses that don't like it, there's the people that don't like it. They can either make it really clear or they can do it behind your back. Both are just as painful, but for every one of those, you've got 10 good people, 10 people on your side. And what I've really learned, and what I've been told as well, is that if you're doing something, people can be jealous or they can just not like you, and that's absolutely fine. And you'll fixate on that one person. I know I do, but in reality, you've got to think, you know, you can run events of 50 people, but is that one person really mattering right now? No. But it is, I mean, that is the ugly. You kind of have to train yourself to not worry, and then you can kind of become a bit withdrawn from the process. That's kind of the tougher side, and kind of putting it to one side and saying, okay, I don't need to worry about this. But, you know, I'm sure Amanda will say, you know, there's probably people out there, and women do it too. It's not just men that are saying, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. There are women out there as well that pull up the ladder and they say, no, if I had to struggle to get here, so do you. So,
yeah,
and
I can tell you those stories. I work for a chief exec who actually said to me to my face, I don't know why you want to do this job. You're a mother of children. Surely isn't that enough?
Yeah. Did you hit them?
No, I didn't hit them, but I did take a deep breath, walk out the room, shut my door and sigh heavily. But it is interestingly, isn't it? I didn't work for that person very long because I worked out that they were an energy sapper. And I think what you're talking about here is surround yourself with the people who get you, particularly when you're stepping out, taking a risk, developing a new idea. Surround yourself with those people, because they'll give you energy. They'll have your back on the difficult points of the journey, and just find a way to have a clear boundary without being rude with the people who don't help you, and in blend we're really clear that kindness isn't a doormat. We won't work with some organizations, Claire knows this, if they are not good people to be around. You know, because we don't have to. It's harder in the public sector, but you can still be boundaried with how much of yourself you give to the people who are the energy sappers. And it's interesting, you said sometimes they're jealous, sometimes they just don't get it. They've not had the experience you've had. No one got Steve Jobs when he thought that the world needed a little portable MP3 player, the little, you know, needed iTunes. But as soon as he gave it to us, boy, did we need it. And then we needed the iPhones. So, you know, you're always going to be a little bit ahead of the pack. So I've heard, stick with your crowd who do support you. Create a bit of a boundary from the naysayers and the negative ones. What one bit of advice would you give somebody else who's sitting on this call thinking, oh, I've got an idea, I'm not going to give up the day job, but I've got an idea and I don't know whether to do anything about it? One bit of advice would you give, Becca?
Go and do it. What's the worst that could happen? You could be told no, and then you're back to where you were originally. Like that's absolutely fine to be at that point. But you have to remember to be kind to yourself. It's all about kindness, you know, to other people, and that will come back at you, and you know, you'll get good things from that. But also just take a minute for yourself. You know, if you're really pushing for something hard, you may need a day off in the middle. It's like you have the weekend to relax, or you know, I enjoy some wine and chill out because of a stressful week. It's like that. You can't always be thinking about something, and you can't always be wondering, what could I do more? Could I do more? No, realistically, if I did more, I'd probably just wouldn't even get through. And I've got to make sure you've got to make sure that you're at that level where you're giving 100%, not trying to push 110, because that 10% is going to come from somewhere else. So if it's, you know, taking it out of your time.
I'm hearing, Becca, do it. If you've got an idea, do it. but
That's
maintain
it.
perspective. Don't feel like
Yes.
you've got to do it all at once.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder, sort of, what's next for you? What you're working on at the moment? What are you working towards? Because you know the Young People's Business Network isn't just the only thing you're doing, is it?
No, so I also run Jenny events. So we run events for young professionals, quite similar to Future Women in Business Network, but it's for all genders and everyone that sort of considers themselves a young professional. So we've just expanded that over to Ipswich. It's working really well in Norwich, so we're moving it to Ipswich. And I'm just kind of focusing a bit as well on sort of my studying as well, just a different side of things.
Get those exams done. We're getting prompted to get people into the breakout rooms. So
yes,
we're going to put you in breakout rooms for 9 minutes. They're going to open momentarily. You might want to take a screenshot of this or jot it down. If you could ask us one question, what would it be? And another one, what's your hustle idea and how can our experience help? So have a think about that with colleagues. I think there'll be between 4 and 6 in each room. So enjoy that, and we look forward to taking some of your questions in 10 minutes when we come back. Thanks, Becca. There'll be a chance to ask Becca lots of questions when we come back from the breakout rooms. So Jade, I'm going to let you put everyone in the breakout rooms. We want to cover as many questions as we got. So if anyone's got a question, just put it in the chat. Anything you want. We'll see what we can cover in the next 15 minutes. While people join us, we noticed in the chat as I was speaking, somebody, so if there was no one else in your breakout room, that doesn't matter. If you've got an idea, pop it in anyway. If you've got a question, we'll definitely take those. So when I was speaking earlier, someone put in the chat agreeing that women get less support. So what can we do about that? If we've got an idea and we feel like we're on our own with it, I would say the research tends to suggest that we're not really good at speaking up. The guys tend to be better at going, oh, I've got this amazing idea, you know, aren't I brilliant? And someone goes, well, let's go to the pub and have a chat about it, or let's have a quick Teams call about it. So speak up, you know. Even if it takes you a week to psych yourself up to mentioning your idea, mention your idea, and then ask other people if they're interested, because that's what Becca did. You know, she spoke up, she asked other people. Before you know it, there's 5 of you going, this is a great idea, and you're not on your own. So create that network, be proactive, do it anyway. I'm a great fan of the Google Queen. I'm the Google Queen. So if I think, oh, the company has this idea, or we want to do this, we've not got the money to pay £100,000 for advice somewhere. We Google it. It's amazing how many videos, how much material is out there. Just Google it and you will find lots of stuff, you know, how to set up an Instagram page, how, you know, 10 steps to take the product to market. There's lots of free advice out there. How do you find, so let's look at some question. How do you find the confidence to get to the point where you can get the ball rolling? How do you get the confidence to lead? Well, I would say this, find a mentor. IHSCM run a great mentoring program online, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Somebody who is in the room with you can help you. If your organisation provides coaching or you can access coaching directly, that will really help you, because confidence is subjective. You will be confident in many areas of your life. It's just finding a way to translate that to another area. Becca, any other suggestions about confidence to lead or take your idea to market?
Yeah, so I think confidence is something that comes quite naturally to me, but through discussions with other people and learning, I think I've decided it's quite a mindset. You have to back yourself first, then you have to have the confidence to talk to someone about it. Then they're like, if they tell you it's a good idea, it's proven already. You need the right mindset to say, okay, no, I do have the right idea. Let's push it. Like, get what you want, get what you need to get, and just sort of have, you know, the confidence in yourself. You just got to back yourself sometimes and just trust that you know what you're doing. even if you don't think you do.
Yeah. So gather people around you, and yes, a mentor or a coach or both. Some people have got mentors and coaches. Glad to see someone's got a coach they're starting with this afternoon. I hope that goes well. As I have to reapply for my role, do you think I should take the opportunity to start a side hustle? Oh, that's a good question. I think if you've got an idea, start a side hustle, whether you're reapplying for your job or not, just start that side hustle. Many of the greatest businesses in the world started on a kitchen table. So, you know, start that hustle. I think there's never, maybe that's prompting you, maybe that sort of restructure, reorganization gives you a bit of momentum to think, oh, there might be something else out there for me. You can hustle within the organisation in terms of, boy, does the NHS and social care need innovators. So you can have an idea within your organisation. You can be like me, running a full-time hustle that supports the public sector, or like Becca on the side. We've put the mentoring programme info in. What advice would you give your younger self in terms of personal development and your leadership development? What's the one thing you had done sooner? Emma, if that's for me, I'm going to say started my business 20 years ago, not 10 years ago. I spent a lot of time. Yeah, I spent too much time in the public sector, in roles, thinking the more senior I got, the more influence and power I'd get. And as much as I loved my work in the public sector, I didn't necessarily get more power and more influence the senior I got. So yeah, for me, I'd leave sooner. I'm transitioning from higher education to the NHS. I'm thinking, what can I lose talking to different people? Yeah, career options, webinars, good, bad, bad. Absolutely. If you are in a space of transition, you will have an opportunity to say, men and women, I'm new here, what can you tell me? And that will last for a few months and then it will go away. So use that opportunity. Becca, what can you see, and what would you tell your younger self, Becca?
I think be less afraid to kind of walk in the opposite direction to other people, break the status quo a bit. I think I've always been someone to do it like in my personal life, but never professionally. I think I followed the rules a bit too much, maybe, in the fact that, you know, then it showed it didn't work out too well, and I just sort of needed to just go for it. But because I was such a way I was already for so many years, I felt like I was completely breaking the mold. But if I'd done it sooner, it's probably more natural.
So we're both saying do it sooner.
Yeah.
You know, it's that as women, we tend to wait a bit too long. How do you graciously move up in an organisation where there are so many people brutally infighting to progress?
That's an amazing question.
That is an amazing question. Well, I think the fighters will keep fighting. Leave them to fight. If they are harming other people on the way, you know, lead differently. Lead differently. Because I think you cannot underestimate, Becca said it earlier, that kindness comes back, role modelling. People do watch role models. You might be the only one seeking to progress by taking people with you, by developing them, by being open and supportive and kind. But people notice what you do, not what you say. So I would say ignore them, let them fight with each other. They'll spend lots of energy on that unless they are harming other people on the way. And then you need to make a stand about that. But meanwhile, role model, just do it the way you're going to do it and just keep doing it that way. And eventually people will see you. How do you manage comments from males within a male dominate in a jokey way? Well, it depends what the comments are. So, you know, if they're sexist and misogynistic, just with a smile, say, please don't do that. I've had those comments. I had a senior male in a room when I was on a board, shut the door and run his fingers up my back. I've never been so terrified in my life. I don't know how I did it. I turned around, I smiled and I said, that's not done here, is it? And he went, and I went, you do it again, and I'm going to tell everyone. Okay. He never did it again. So I think you just have to knock them back down when they do it. There are windows of opportunities to talk about misogyny and sexism in forums, but I think just have none of it. So I always made sure I was really scary with the blokes, you know, double down on the scary. I don't know about that, Becca. Be the one that they think, oh my God, I'm not going to do that to.
I think scary, and as well, like, don't set yourself, I try not to set myself completely apart from men. Like the fact that I'm women and male, I try and make sure it's not that clear in the fact that there's a strict divide. I'm the same person to a female as to a male, so I'm quite good friends with a lot of males and a lot of females generally in my personal life, and it's the same at work. I try and be the same person, and they kind of treat you with more sort of respect, rather than, you know, I'm not walking around the office, you know, trying to avoid them or try and be flirty with them or anything. I'll treat them exactly the same, and I find that suits me quite well. And
someone said here, I would ask them, would you do that if I were a man? So, you know, there's ways like to have those strategies. Yeah, be true to yourself, because I think, you know, what younger women have given us older women the permission to do is to be a bit more assertive with the Me Too movement. You know, that's really been helpful for young women to speak up and say that's not acceptable. So I think maybe we put up, or ask them, would they say that to their daughter? That's a really good one. That really freaks men out often. Yeah, so just don't let them rain on your parade in that way. Find whatever strategy you can to keep that misogyny, that sexism away from you. It is still there, it's rife in the whole culture, but try and sort of make your space bigger almost. If you could see my hands, I'd be pushing them out. So, you know, make that space bigger around you, because you'll encounter loads of it. My daughter plays cricket. If anyone saw BBC News website this morning, it is shocking. It is shocking how second-class women are treated in cricket, but they're outing it. So there's an opportunity to talk about that. Cheryl Sandberg, yeah, read. There's lots of books you can read from great women, and then just like find your way of doing it. So Becca and I have given you distant examples. Read it, think about it, think, how do I want to do that? How do I create that space? Becca, can you see anything in there that people we haven't covered?
There's a question around imposter syndrome.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Imposter syndrome is a really good question, because I think everyone deals with that differently. And it kind of circles back to, you know, backing yourself and trusting yourself, in my opinion. And you're going to make me do it now. I'm going to write a blog. It's half written on imposter syndrome and how I coach women around imposter syndrome. So read the blog. But it's essentially about backing yourself and not get caught up in the areas that you feel less confident in, but learning from those situations, because it might be that your body and your mind's giving you some messages here about how to respond differently. But I will put a LinkedIn blog up on that, and I'll share it with Jade so it can go in the newsletter as well, if you can bear 750 words rather than 500. Yep, find out all your support groups. There's a really good one about universities there. Just get yeah, and I think, look, someone here's the women and girls lead in their cricket club. I think men find this really difficult because cricket tends to be a male-dominated sport, and even if women are in the club, that will be one team and there'll be 5 male teams, and so you're in the minority, and then they reinforce what they think of the world together. My daughter's got herself on the board of her cricket club, and the guys say every Saturday night in the pub we get a lecture on sexism from your daughter, and I go, great, because you need to hear it. So, you know, there's
they're hearing it. She's in there drinking the cider with them. Becca, you asked one question about my business when I started it. I started my business 10 years ago. We've got a 10-year anniversary in December. So this wasn't an overnight success thing. 5 years ago, I started working with other colleagues and put a lot of the building blocks in place that allowed us 3 years ago to expand on the back of a national, international emergency. So don't think that I got here in one move. I got here in hundreds of moves over 10 years. So please be assured that even a big hustle like this started just with me on my own with 2 hours of a virtual PA a week. That was 10 years ago. And now we are, you know, turning over nearly £500,000 a year. And I've got 8 staff in the core team and 35 coaches. So, you know, but that's taken 10 years. It's taken 10 years. So it's not, you know, anyone can do this, because what we know as women is we're tenacious enough. We stick with it when the guys give up. So, you know, that's all you need to do. Stick with your idea and it'll come right in the end. Thank you. We're at 1 o'clock, aren't we, Jade?
We are, Amanda, and thank you, Amanda and Rebecca, for your experience and insight today, for sharing those top tips and answering a lot of the questions that we've had coming through the chat. I hope that everybody that's joined today has had some benefit from those experiences and managed to introduce themselves. I can see there's lots of networking going on in the chat, which is good to see. We'd love to have you come along to our part 2 in this Sisters Doing It For Themselves workshop series, which is on the 13th of July, same time, 12 till 1 lunchtime slot. I've put a link in the chat, but I'll do a follow-up email to everybody as well. And if you can, come along tomorrow for our Introduction to Mentoring programme, Power Hour with Amanda. She'll be going over our mentoring short course that was developed with Blend. And if you attend that session, you'll be given a discount if you're not a member of the Institute to join and undertake that short course in full with us. So thank you so much for attending today. We look forward to seeing you either tomorrow or on the 13th of July. This has been the Women in Leadership Special Interest Group meeting and the first in Sisters Doing It For Themselves workshop series. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye all.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.